Snow settled quietly over the shattered cathedral as Elara waited beneath its fractured stone arches. She stood straight despite the cold, determined not to reveal the tremor building behind her calm exterior. Dozens of alien dignitaries observed her, their murmurs drifting like restless insects through the frozen air. They evaluated her every movement, wondering whether a human bride could truly anchor a fragile galactic alliance. Elara felt their skepticism pressing against her, heavier than the snow accumulating around her boots. The High Consul stepped forward, his crystalline carapace reflecting a faint glow from the storm-darkened sky. He regarded her with restrained unease, as if she were a volatile relic rather than a diplomatic envoy. "Ambassador Quinn, the hour has come, yet your husband remains absent," he announced with meticulous courtesy. Elara kept her expression steady, though her heart pounded with the quiet ferocity of contained lightning. She trusted Varen, even if no one else in the Concord believed the enigmatic warrior would honor their union. Their bond had formed in crisis, woven through battles where his impossible strength shielded entire cities from annihilation. When he vanished afterward, she believed she would never see him again, until his unexpected proposal arrived. Now she waited beside the ancient binding arch, praying the Concord would not interpret his absence as betrayal. Whispers swelled as a dark vessel pierced the clouds, descending with predatory grace toward the frost-covered plaza. Guards lifted their weapons, but hesitation rippled through them when the ship's hull revealed unfamiliar living patterns. Steam billowed as the hatch opened, unveiling a tall figure encased in armor etched with luminous sigils. Varen stepped forward, each movement deliberate, as though the world itself were adjusting to accommodate his presence. The murmuring dignitaries recoiled slightly, recognizing power that felt older than empires but tethered to a human cause. Elara exhaled shakily when he stopped before her, his masked face angled with an almost protective precision. "I am here," he said, his voice resonant enough to still the drifting snow for an instant. Relief surged through her, tempered by the dread of the binding rite that would expose intentions without mercy. Drex approached cautiously, recalibrating his translator as he contemplated whether this union threatened the Concord's equilibrium. He warned them that the Arch allowed no deception, and that failure would disgrace Earth before every witness. Varen merely nodded, placing his hand beside Elara's upon the ancient stone that pulsed with awakening power. The Arch responded instantly, threads of light weaving upward as if analyzing the very marrow of their resolve. Energy coiled around them, exposing memories and motivations, revealing the shape of a bond forged in fire. Some spectators scoffed as fragmented images shimmered above the arch, doubting a human could anchor such force. Others leaned closer, realizing the resonance was stabilizing rather than fracturing, as though Varen drew strength from her. Elara felt the arch probe her intentions, searching for hesitation, yet finding only the fierce clarity of choice. Even Varen bowed his head slightly as lights swirled around them, acknowledging the gravity of this unbreakable vow. A deep hum rolled through the plaza, silencing even the most cynical observers as the arch completed its assessment. The final surge of light bound their joined hands, declaring their intentions compatible despite doubts that had shadowed the gathering. Gasps rippled outward as the arch dimmed, leaving an undeniable imprint of acceptance etched across its ancient surface. Elara steadied herself, sensing the crowd, reevaluating her worth now that the binding had confirmed her devotion. Varen turned to her, his presence promising strength no mockery could ever diminish. The glow from the binding arch intensified, radiating through the frozen courtyard in rippling waves. A low hum vibrated beneath the stones, resonating in Elara's bones as though the ancient structure were waking from centuries-long sleep. She tightened her grip on Varen's hand, feeling the cold metal beneath his gauntlet, and focused on the vow she had carried in her heart since the day he vanished from Lyra Prime. She did not look away from him, even as the assembled delegates murmured in growing alarm. The Arch answered intent, not appearance. At least, that was what the Concord's laws proclaimed. But Elara could feel the tension in the air, an unspoken challenge to those words. The Arch's tendrils of light coiled around her first, brushing her skin like warm silk. Images flickered in the air before her memories, her fears, her hopes. She saw her childhood among Terran ruins, the weight of expectations placed upon her shoulders, the heavy silence after each hard-won negotiation. Then she saw Varen, his silhouette amid smoke, the glimmer of pale blue along his mask, the strange gentleness behind his stillness. The light shifted to him. It wrapped his form cautiously, almost warily, as if uncertain how to interpret what it touched. The Arch flickered, dimmed, then surged brighter. A pulse of energy swept through the courtyard, forcing several delegates to stagger back. Drex chittered anxiously, mandibles clacking against his translator node. "That reaction is not normal," he said, voice sharp with suspicion. "He is resisting." But Varen stood motionless, offering the Arch no defiance and no submission. Elara sensed something beneath his stillness, an internal struggle, quiet yet immense, like tectonic plates shifting far underground. She stepped closer, her voice soft yet unwavering. "Let it see you. All of you. You came for a reason. Trust that reason." For a moment, the mask's blue lines dimmed. Then, slowly, they brightened again, coursing with steadier light. Varen lifted his head toward the Arch, as though facing a judge long awaited. The glow enfolded him, probing deeper, searching for something the delegates had long feared a machine could not possess. "What is he?" someone whispered from the crowd. "What kind of being hides behind that armor?" The Arch's light formed shapes, fragmented images that shimmered in the air above them. A battlefield drenched in shadows. A colossal figure wielding a blade of blinding energy. A lone warrior standing amid fallen enemies, his armor cracked, his hands trembling. And then, most startling of all, a memory not of war but of peace. A small garden at dusk, petals drifting on a breeze, and in the center stood Varen, unmasked, though the Arch concealed his true face in a blur of luminous haze. The delegates fell silent. Emotion was unmistakable in that image. Sorrow, longing, and a profound isolation that felt older than any of them could comprehend. The Arch pulsed one final time. Its light folded inward, dimming as the hum faded. When the glow vanished completely, a single chime echoed through the courtyard, a resonance that signified truth accepted. Varen had been judged. Drex stared in disbelief. The Arch allowed it. Elara released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She turned to Varen, who bowed his head as though acknowledging a verdict. But beneath the metal mask, she sensed something shifting, a quiet relief, or perhaps a guarded hope. Yet the stillness lasted only a moment. The ground trembled, subtle but unmistakable. Snow drifted from the ruined arches as a deep vibration rolled beneath them, like something ancient stirring awake. Delegates looked around in alarm. Elara felt the shift too and instinctively stepped closer to Varen. He angled his body protectively, his hand hovering near the weapon at his back. "The Arch is reacting again," Drex said, panic edging his voice. "This should not happen." A fissure of pale light split across the stones. Elara stared, her pulse quickening, as the air thickened with the sense of an unseen presence. Whatever had been sleeping beneath the sanctuary had chosen this moment to rise. The binding was complete, yet something else had been triggered. A consequence none of them understood. The chamber lights dimmed to a somber glow as Elara settled beside Varen, their shoulders almost touching on the metal bench. Hours had passed since the Arch collapsed, yet the air around them still trembled faintly, as though the ancient structure's final pulse lingered in memory. Varen had not removed his mask, nor had he spoken since their confinement began. The Concord guards had escorted them to an isolated observation room deep within the sanctuary complex, muttering about protocol and containment. Now only distant footsteps and the muffled murmur of officials leaked through the thick walls. Elara studied him in silence, tracing the fine patterns etched along his armored gauntlet. She wanted to ask what the arch had seen when its inner rings blazed with impossible light. She wanted to demand answers for the fear rippling through the Concord halls. But she sensed that whatever held him still was heavier than words. When she finally spoke, her voice came soft and steady. "They don't trust us. Not anymore." Varen responded after a long pause, the modulation in his mask crackling. "They fear what they witnessed. Fear is easier than understanding." She leaned forward, lowering her gaze. "Then help me understand. The arch reacted to you as if it recognized something ancient and dangerous. What did it see?" His shoulders shifted, a faint echo of conflict tightening the space around them. "Truth," he said. "Not all truths inspire comfort. That's not an answer. It is the only one I can give without doing harm." The admission cut sharper than any blade. Elara curled her hands together, the cold from the bench seeping into her palms. "I trusted you," she whispered. "Not blindly, not foolishly, but because I believed there was a reason you chose me. A reason this bond mattered." He turned his head slightly toward her. "There was. Then tell me why." Because for the first time since his arrival, he reached for her hand. The metal fingers closed around hers with a gentleness that felt impossibly deliberate. Heat stirred beneath the alloy, faint but present. "Elara," he said, her name distortion softened yet undeniably careful. "You were the only one who looked at me without seeing a weapon." Before she could respond, the door hissed open and High Consul Drex entered, flanked by 2 guards. His carapace gleamed under the dim lights, tension pulsing through each facet. "You both will come with me. The council requires an immediate inquiry." Elara rose first. "On what grounds?" Drex's mandibles clicked. "On the grounds that the binding arch reacted violently to the presence of your partner. It revealed classifications we cannot interpret. It hinted at a military nature beyond any Concord registry. The safety of our alliance demands clarity." Varen stood, towering yet composed. "You seek control, not clarity. You speak boldly for someone under review." Drex retorted. "Do not mistake restraint for weakness." Elara stepped between them, her voice firm. "Enough. If you want answers, question us without posturing. Varen has cooperated at every step." "Cooperation is not the same as transparency," Drex countered, but he gestured for them to follow. They were led through a narrow corridor lined with flickering sconces, remnants of the sanctuary's old Terran architecture now fused with Concord technology. As they walked, Elara's thoughts churned. Every glance directed at them from passing personnel carried suspicion, fascination, or outright dread. She felt Varen's presence at her back, silent and resolute, a gravity that steadied her even as uncertainty surged. Drex halted before a reinforced door. Inside, he ordered. Elara entered first and froze. The room was vast, circular, and dominated by a holographic projection suspended above the central dais. It displayed an image she did not understand at first. Layers of luminous sigils intertwined with shifting runic fragments. Then she realized they were the same markings engraved along Varen's armor, glowing brighter with each rotation. Drex spoke with solemn weight. These symbols appeared when the arch scanned him. They matched no known species, no known soldier, no known origin. Elara's breath caught. Then what are they? The projection pulsed, filling the chamber with cold light. Varen answered, his voice quiet but unyielding. They're the reason I should never have survived. The aftermath of the binding arch's revelation lingered like a charged veil, reshaping every alliance present as Elara and Varen stepped into a future none of them could fully anticipate. Reports spread rapidly across the Concord, each account shaped by awe and trepidation as delegates struggled to interpret the arch's verdict and the mysterious force validating Varen before their eyes. Elara sensed the shifting atmosphere, recognizing that admiration and suspicion now intertwined dangerously, creating currents she would need to navigate carefully to protect both her husband and Earth from harm. Varen moved through the Concord halls with controlled precision, every step revealing an evolving awareness, as though the Arch had awakened dormant protocols guiding him toward choices beyond programming limits. Delegates watched him with unsettled fascination, recognizing that whatever he was now transcended familiar classifications. Yet none could determine whether this transformation signaled promise or calamity for interspecies stability ahead. Elara approached Varen privately, guiding him onto a silent balcony overlooking the frostbound spires, determined to understand how deeply the Arch had altered his perception and his fragile connection within. He confessed softly that the Arch had revealed fragmented memories, neither fully synthetic nor wholly organic, leaving him suspended between origins he could not name and futures he feared acknowledging. Elara listened without flinching, sensing that his uncertainty stemmed less from fear and more from a desire to protect her from whatever truth the Arch had only begun to reveal. The moment deepened their bond, forging trust not through ceremony, but through shared vulnerability that neither diplomacy nor prophecy could impose, allowing their partnership to evolve with newfound equilibrium today. Yet the Concord observed the shift as well, recognizing that their unity introduced unpredictable variables that might either stabilize fragile alliances or rupture long-standing agreements forged through centuries of tension. Drex convened an emergency council, insisting that the couple's bond required immediate evaluation to determine whether Varen's transformation posed risks that could eclipse any diplomatic value their marriage might symbolize. Elara refused to be sidelined, asserting firmly that decisions involving her husband must include her insight, for she alone sensed the nuances within his shifting state that others would misjudge. Her insistence unsettled several delegates, yet reminded them that humanity had endured adversity before, adapting with resilience that often defied predictions made by species possessing far older civilizations today. As tensions rose, Varen's posture shifted subtly, revealing heightened protective instincts that suggested the Arch had not merely restored fragmented memories, but awakened responsibilities intertwined with forces he barely understood. Elara placed a steadying hand on his arm, silently urging patience, knowing impulse could escalate concerns and that their future depended on measured choices that would honor the fragile hope. Drex finally demanded that Varen submit to a controlled examination, arguing that transparency would reassure wary nations and clarify whether his nature had become a volatile threat rather than diplomatic. Varen agreed reluctantly, not from submission, but from a desire to shield Elara from escalating scrutiny, demonstrating a maturity that surprised even those who interpreted him exclusively as weapon. The examination chamber prepared by Concord engineers hummed with calibrated frequencies, designed to reveal internal structures without provoking reactive defenses that might skew results or jeopardize nearby personnel in attendance. Elara accompanied him to the threshold, refusing to abandon him at the moment scrutiny narrowed most tightly, offering presence as both anchor and declaration that he would not face judgment. As the doors sealed between them, a trembling resonance rippled through the chamber walls, hinting that the truths about his surface would redefine not only Varen's destiny, but the Concord's.